We continue now at the top of Daf Yodalit and Beis in Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 14b. And the previous Talmud Shmuel said that when it comes to a Kattan who's born on the holiday can get a haircut on Chol Moed because there was no opportunity to get a haircut beforehand. And the implication was that if the Kattan was born before the Moed, so then the haircut has to be done before the Moed. You're not allowed to get a haircut on Chol Moed in such a situation. And so Rav Pinchas asks from a Braisa and Shmuel, seems to be from the Braisa. The Braisa seems to be equating the laws of Chol Moed with the laws of Avelus. And so the Gemara now says, V'iyamrid Kattan is bei pluksa. If you're going to make this distinction by a Kattan, meaning the distinction that Shmuel is making between a Kattan, between a baby that is born before the Moed and a baby that is born after the Moed, so nimtzas Avelus noheges b'Kattan. It comes out that what you're really saying is that when the Kattan, in certain situations, you're going to have a Kattan also has to be noheg Avelus. In other words, the halachas are the same. That's what the Brisa seems to imply, that the halachas of cutting the hair by Avelus are the same as the halachas of cutting the hair on Chol Moed, and therefore it's going to come out that there are some halachas of Avelus by a Kattan. But we learned in a Brisa, Mekarin lekatan mipnei agmas nefesh. The only reason we tear the clothing of a Kattan who is an Avel is just because we want it to be agmas nefesh. We want it to be that people should see and they should cry, they should feel bad. But really, there is no Avelus by a Kattan. So it's really a contradiction over here. One Brisa is implying that the halachas of Chol Moed in terms of getting a haircut are identical by Avelus, but by a Kattan, it's really not going to be the case. You have a situation where a Kattan is not allowed to get a haircut. Let's say again, the baby is born or the Kattan is alive before the Moed. And it's not true when it comes to Avelus. There is no Avelus by a Kattan. Rashi over here says, V'yamr b'Kattan islay plugsa chiluk denolad kodem haregel eno megalech beregel. If you're going to say like Shmuel again, that if the baby, the child was born before the holiday, you're not allowed to get a haircut on the holiday. Now, based on the Brisa that we brought in the previous Amud, it should come out that the same thing is true by Avelus. You can't get a haircut if you're a Kattan. It's going to come out there's Avelus by a Kattan. But we say Mekaran the Kattan es begadav. We own the only reason we tear the clothing of a Kattan is agmas nefesh, because of agmas nefesh. Shayivku haroin. Rashi says that people should see, they should cry. That's a greater kavod ames if they're crying. It's not the fact that the Kattan has any halachas of Avelus. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi says, Mikatani, does it say in that Brisa, ha'asurin, that automatically everything that's asur, everything that's forbidden on Chol Moed is also asur by an Avel? It's not true. Dilma yesh mehen asur, v'yesh mehen mutter. Could be there's some that are asur, but there are also exceptions. By a Kattan would be a situation of an exception. Rashi over here says, Mikatani ho asurin, demashmo ho asurin legalech b'moed, asurin legalech be'avel. It doesn't say anywhere in the Brisa that everybody that's forbidden to shave on the Moed is asur to shave in the times of Avelus. That was just an inference that you made from the Brisa. Really, yesh mehen asurin, b'shar kol adam sh'asurin legalech b'moed, asurin legalech b'me'avel. People who are not katanim, so that's it's true. They're not allowed to shave on the Moed, they're not allowed to shave during Avelus. V'yesh man mutar, but there are some exceptions that it's mutar as an Avel. Kagon Kattan zeshanol lekodem haregel. For example, a Kattan that's born before the regel she'asur legalech beregel. So we know he's not allowed to shave during the regel, but mutar legalech b'me'avlo. But that same Kattan can get a haircut during the times of Avelus. In other words, again, it was just an inference from the Brisa. You don't make the inference all the way. There are exceptions. And the Gemara continues, Ameimar v'itemar Rav Shisha Brei Ravidi masni hachi. Ameimar, some people say it's Rav Shisha Brei Ravidi. They taught it as follows, meaning the above Gemara, they had the following version of that Gemara. Amar Shmuel, that Shmuel said, Kattan mutter legalcho b'moed. Shmuel actually made a different statement. He said a Kattan always is allowed to shave on Chol Moed, can always get a haircut. Loshna noled b'moed, v'loshna noled meikara. It doesn't matter if he was born on the Moed, doesn't matter if he was born before the Moed. According to this version, Shmuel allows it all the time. And according to this version, Amar Pinchas says, not a kasha from a Brisa, but actually it supports. Afanon nami tanina, we learned this actually in a Brisa as well. Kalelu sha'amru, mutar legalech b'moed, mutar legalech b'me'avlo. All the cases where you're allowed to shave on Chol Moed, you're also allowed to shave in situations of Avelus, meaning all the exceptions again by Chol Moed are also going to be exceptions by an Avel. And we can infer that all the situations where you're not allowed to get a haircut on Chol Moed, you're also not allowed to get a haircut in Avelus. And so now we say, Yamid Kattan Aser, Nimsas Avelus, no Agus B'Kattan. If you said that a Kattan would be Aser to get a haircut on Chol Moed, there would also be Avelus by a Kattan. But that's not true. V'tanya Mekaran L'Kattan V'nei Agmas Nefesh. We learned in a Brisa, the only reason we tear the begadim of a Kattan, the clothing of a Kattan when he's an Avelus, is in order to make people sad. But there really is no Avelus by a Kattan. So again, that would imply that there's no restriction in terms of a haircut as well when it comes to Chol Moed. Gemara says not necessarily a proof. Amar Rav Ashi says, Mikatani, does it say in this Brisa, Ho Asurin, that all the situations that are Asur by Chol Moed are also Asur by Avelus? It's not true. Dilma yesh mehen aser, v'yesh mehen mutter. Like we said before, maybe there are some situations that are aser, but it could be there are some situations that in terms of avelos, it would be mutter, like a kattan, where maybe the same kattan would have a problem getting a haircut on Chol HaMoed, so it's not necessarily a proof from the Brisa to what Shmuel said in this version. And the Gemara continues, Avel eino noeg aveluso beregel. When it comes to an Avel does not conduct himself as a mourner on the holiday. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, v'samachta b'chagecha. It says that you have to be happy on the holiday, so you can't have avelos on the holiday. And the Gemara now explains, avelos demei karahu. If you're talking about avelos from before, meaning the avelos started before the holiday and now is going into the holiday. So asi asay de rabim v'dachi asay de yachid. So the asay that applies to the public, meaning the asay that everybody should celebrate the holiday v'samachta b'chagecha, that is going to push off the asay of the yachid, meaning the asay to be an avelus. Rashi over here says asi asay de rabim v'samachta. That's what we just quoted, v'samachta b'chagecha. V'dachi asay de yachid. What's the asay that applies to an individual to be an avelus? Avel dechsiv avel yachid asiloch. So it's talking here in a pasuk in Yirmi. It's not a pasuk from the Chumash, but this is a pasuk that talks about the avel of an individual. So again, that's an avelus that applies. It's not a rabbim. So the asay of the rabbim is going to be docha. The asay of the yachid, the simcha of the regel, is going to be docha the avelus. The avelus dahasht. And the Gemara continues. Let's say the avelus actually happens now on the moed. So the hashtahu. So lo asi asay the yachid v'dachi asay the rabbim. So again, the asay of the yachid, meaning to be an avelus, is not going to come along and be docha the asay of the rabbim. And the Gemara continues, menuda, when it comes to somebody who's ostracized from the community, mahu sheyinog niduyav beregel, is there halacha that he has to conduct himself like someone who's ostracized from the community, even on the regel? Does that apply? The halachas of niduy, do they apply in the regel as well? Amar Rav Yosef says, Tashma, come near the following proof. Donin dine nefashos v'dine makos v'dine mominus. It says that you are allowed to have judgments, capital cases. You can have cases involving malchus. You can have cases involving mominus. All of these can apply. On the moed. So the Gemara says, "V'ilot sayis dina." Now, what's the halacha? The halacha is that somebody who doesn't listen to a judgment, mishamtinan lei. The halacha is that you actually ostracize such a person. That's how we force a person to listen to the judgment. So v'isalka daitach eino noeg niduyav beregel. Now, if you're going to say that there's no such thing as nidoy on the holiday, so if that's the case, so mishumis v'asi meikara, somebody who was already ostracized from before the regel. Asi regel dachile, then the regel comes along and says you don't have to conduct yourself in nidoy. There's no nidoy, even though you were already in nidoy. So hashta mishamtinon le'anon. So now in this situation, let's say on the holiday itself, we're gonna ostracize somebody because the guy didn't listen to the court case. In other words, the fact that it says that you can have court cases on the moed actually implies that you are allowed to do nidoy on the moed as well, because those go hand in hand. You can't have a court case if the court doesn't have the power to enforce. So therefore, it must be that there is nidoy even on the moed, even on the holiday. So the Gemara says not necessarily a proof. Amar le Abaye, so Abaye says back to Rav Yosef, v'dilma iyune bedine. Maybe all they're doing is they're just looking into the din. Take a look at Rashi over here. Rashi says first, asi don and dine nefashos rather b'moed. Again, you're allowed to have court cases, even capital cases on the moed. Avalo b'yomtiv. You can do it on Chol HaMoed. You can't do it on Yomtiv itself. She'asur misham shvus. That's an issur d'Rabbanan. V'dakina minam midadaninon b'moed. From the fact that on Chol HaMoed you can have the case. Mechlal di lot sayis na mishamtina le b'moed. That would imply someone who doesn't listen to the court, you can ostracize them. So asi regel v'dachin le. Now, if somebody is already in nidoy, the regel undoes it. She'eno noeg nidoy b'regel, that he doesn't have to conduct himself in nidoy during the regel. So certainly you're not going to put someone in nidoy during the regel. And so Abaye again says back to Rav Yosef, Dilma li'iyune. Maybe over here, when it says that you have court cases, it just means to look into the case. Hadatani dedonin lo amrinan delema ish ploni chayiv. When we say that we can have court cases, it doesn't mean that we're going to say that the person's chayiv, ish ploni zakai, or say that the person's innocent. We're not going to rule on the case. Because if that were the case, then you could indeed make an inference that a person doesn't listen to the court's ruling. We're going to put him in nidoy. Rather, all it means is that we're going to look into the court case. We can take a look at the evidence of the court case, but we're not actually going to say anything. We're not going to issue any rulings. And the Gemara says, Abaye says, if you don't say that this is the pshat, so dine nefashos de katani, it says over here again that you can have capital cases. So hachinami de katlin lay, do you think that we're actually going to kill the person on the moed? Obviously we're not. We're not going to carry out the ruling. So again, it must just be that we're looking at the evidence of the case. If you're going to go kill the person, so then that's going to be, again, that's going to take away from the simchas yontiv. The Tanya's we learned in a brayse. So Rabbi Akiva says, Minayin l'Sanhedrin, shehargu es hanefesh. How do we know that when a Sanhedrin, when they kill somebody, she'ein toam in kolos hayom? Now we're not talking about the person that's being killed. He's not going to have simchas yontif. We mean to say the Sanhedrin itself. If they issue a ruling and actually kill someone and carry out a capital punishment, they're not allowed to taste anything, to eat anything that entire day, which of course cannot be on the yontif. So Talmud lomar lo sochlu al adam. The pasuk says you're not allowed to eat over the blood. We learn out from that pasuk that if the Sanhedrin kills somebody, they can't eat that day. So obviously that's not something you're going to do on the Moed. Elo le'iyune b'dinei. Obviously, when it says that you have dinei nefashos on the Moed, it means just to look into the evidence of the case. Hachanami le'iyune b'dinei. So too, that's what it means over here as well. It simply means to look into the evidence of the case. There's no rulings that are being issued, and therefore there's no need for nidois, no proof one way or the other. So the Gemara continues. Amar Leiser, Rav Yosef said back to Abaye, Im kein nimtzis ma'anes dino. If that's the case, aren't you going to be ma'anes dino? Means that you're not moving the case along in a quick enough fashion. You're delaying the justice. Rashi over here says ma'anes dino dechilo amru le dino la'alter. If you don't tell him what the ruling is immediately, the Aini Bay, which you looked into, havale inoi hadin, that should be a situation of delay of the justice, and that should be a problem. And so the Gemara says, Asu mitzafra u'me'ayne b'dina. What they do is as follows. They come in the morning, and they're going to look into the court case. V'ayli v'achli v'shasu kulayoma. And then what they can do is they can go out, and they can eat, and they can drink all day. V'hadar asu b'shkias acham. And then they can come at sunset at the end of the day. V'gamrina l'dina. They can finish off the court case, the katlule, and they can actually kill him in that case. It's already going to be the end. They will have eaten and drunk that day. There's not going to be a problem of taking away the simchas yontif. And Rashi over here explains, Elo liolam donin dino v'gomrin mamish b'moed. So rather, the pshat is like this. Really, when it says that we're allowed to have court cases on the Moed, it means we're going to have the full case, and we're even going to issue a ruling. And really, you really could make an inference and say, if the person doesn't listen to the court's ruling, then there's going to be ostracization. There's going to be nidui. And you can even infer from this that again, that nidui can happen during the regel. And that which you asked, that if we're going to do this, that the whole brisa doesn't make sense anyway, because you're going to be taking away from the simchas yontif. No, there's a way to get around that. You can always say again that you started off in the morning, you still are able to eat and drink, you can finish it off during the day. According to Rashi's understanding of the Gemara over here, really what the Gemara is now saying is really this could be a proof, and there's a way of understanding it, the proof that you have against it, saying, how could you possibly do a capital case? It's impossible to rule on a capital case. That's not true. It is possible to rule on a capital case, so you don't really have a proof that they're not issuing a ruling. It is possible, not like Abaya is saying, it's possible that what's going on here is in fact in this brisa that they're issuing a ruling, and therefore it is possible that it is a proof. The Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof again. We're trying to prove this issue, whether there can be nidui on the Moed. It says, Umenuda shehitiru lo chachamim. Let's say you had somebody who was ostracized, it says in our Mishnah, and then the chachamim said they brought him out of being ostracized, they brought him back into the community. So he said that person is allowed to have a haircut on chol Moed. And so the implication over here is that the person was actually in nidui, but then the chachamim undid it. And the understanding is that the chachamim undid it because it's the regel. The Mishnah seems to be saying that they would always undo a nidui on the Moed. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava says back to Abaye, Mikotani shehitiru chachamim. It doesn't say that the chachamim allowed it like as if it's automatic. Shehitiru lo chachamim katani. It just means the chachamim allowed it for him. They don't necessarily allow everyone that's in nidui. The azalu paise lebaldine. What happened was he went and he appeased the person he was having a din with. He was having a court case against somebody that caused him to be ostracized. Now he appeased that individual. V'yasi kamei d'Rabbanan. He came before the Rabbanan. V'sharule, and they permitted him. They undid his nidui. It's no proof from our Mishnah that every single person who's in nidui that we undo it on the regel. Rashi over here explains Tashma menuda sheitir lo chacham kasal kadai tochitir l'chol menuda nidui b'regel. We originally think that every single nidui, every single menuda, we allow it on the regel. There ain't nidui noheg b'regel. There's no nidui on the regel, but that's not the case. What actually happened was, again, he was mefayis the other baldin on the regel. The chachamim allowed it. It's not necessarily true in every single case. And the Gemara continues with a similar question, Mitzora, when it comes to somebody who's a Mitzora, who has leprosy, Mausha Yanig Tzorato Beregel, does he have to conduct himself with all of the rules of a Mitzora on the regel? Again, that would be preventing him from really celebrating the regel properly, so does it apply to him on the regel? Amar Abaye says, Tashma, come and hear a proof. This is also a proof from our Mishnah of HaNazir v'HaMitzora mitumaso letaroso. It says if you have a Nazir and a Mitzora who are in the purification process, they also are allowed to get haircuts on Chol HaMoed. Habi made tumaso noig. So it sounds like during the time when the mitzora is is tameh, he has to conduct himself like a mitzora. It's only in the process of tahara that we're talking, but there is a state of tumah for the mitzora on the moed. So the Gemara says, no, lomi boy kamar. You could understand the Mishnah is like a lomi boy. Not only this, even that. And what it means as follows: lomi boy bimei tumaso de lo noeg. I don't even need to tell you that during the times of tumah, that's not going to be noeg on the regel. Avola tahara. So, but maybe if the person is involved in purification, nigzor shema yisha karbonosav. So then we should say, we have a decree, maybe the person will delay his karbonos. Maybe that's a reason not to. We'll see in Rashi in a minute. So Kamash Mulan, we're saying even the one who is in the process of purification, even he is allowed to get a haircut. Rashi over here says, what does it mean to conduct yourself as a mitzora? It means you have to be outside the machane, you're ostracized from the community, not allowed to get a haircut. So habi made tumaso noeg. It sounds like during the time he's tamei, he does conduct himself tzarata b'regel. He does conduct himself like someone who has tzaras even on the holiday. And so the Gemara says, no. When the person's tamei, it's not true either. But it means in the purification process, maybe you would think nigzor shaloye megalech b'moed. Maybe you would say that somebody who just purified, they shouldn't shave on the moed. The kaven degilach tzarech lahavi carbon, because once the mitzora shaves, in terms of the steps of purification, the next step is to bring a carbon. We're afraid he's going to delay to bring that carbon till the end of the yontiv, and then he'll bring it. Now it's also to bring the karbonos yachid on the yontiv. It's also to bring these individual karbonos on yontiv. So that's actually what we're afraid of over here. In this particular case, we're afraid that he's going to end up bringing it on the yontiv, which he's not really supposed to do. He's not going to bring a chol hamoed. He really should bring it on chol hamoed, but he's going to delay till yontiv because he's going to want to bring it on yontiv, and he's not supposed to do that. So in that particular case, maybe we'll say, you know what? Maybe for someone who's purifying themselves as a mitzora, maybe they specifically shouldn't get a haircut on chol hamoed. So the Mishnah is saying even in that case they get a haircut. But it could very well be by a mitzora who is bimei tumaso. It could be on the contrary. It could be a mitzora who would be made tumaso. He doesn't conduct himself as a mitzora on the regel, and he would actually be allowed to shave on the regel. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Tashma, coming here, another proof again, whether a mitzora conducts himself as a mitzora during the regel. It says, V'hat sarua, and somebody who has saras, l'rabos kohen gadol. The drasha over here is that even a Kohen Gadol has to conduct himself when he has saras. He has all the rules of a mitzora on himself. So the Gemara says, Kohen Gadol d'chol hashana kiregel l'kuli alma dami. A Kohen Gadol all year is the same as a regular person during the regel. It's like the same status. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Kohen Gadol makriv onein ve'eno ochel. The halach is when you're Kohen Gadol, so when a Kohen Gadol is an onein is somebody who is right before the period of avelus, right before the mace is buried, so he's considered an ones. So the halach is the Kohen Gadol can bring the carbon at that time. He can bring a carbon even though he's in aninos, even though he's an onein. He's not allowed to eat from the carbon, and that's exactly the same. We'll see in a moment. That's similar to a regular person on the regel. And yet we're saying the Kohen Gadol conducts himself as a mitzora. So to a regular person on the regel should conduct all the rules of mitzora. So the Gemara says, Shma mino, noeg tzarata b'regel, Shma mino. Indeed, this is a proof that a regular person on the regel does conduct himself as a mitzora. If he is a mitzora, the Gemara says, indeed, it is a proof. The Rashi over here says, L'Rabos Kohen Gadol should noeg bo tzaras. Again, a Kohen Gadol has to follow all the rules of tzaras. Kohen Gadol kol hashana l'didei karegel l'kul yama damin d'tanan Kohen Gadol makravonin. So the Kohen Gadol all year is like anyone else on a regel, just like we see a Kohen Gadol brings karbonos as an onen. Midamer lo Aaron l'Moshe. This is all learned out from the conversation that Aaron had with Moshe. Aaron was an avelus due to the death of Nadav and Avihu. So he says, V'achalti chatas hayom. He says, should I eat the carbon today? He didn't say, should I bring it? That implies that to bring the carbon as an onen is not a problem. You learn out from here that a Kohen Gadol brings the carbon as an onen. But other people during the regular times of the year, they actually don't send karbanos, like we say later on, only at a time when the person is whole. Not when a person is an onen. Uveregel mishaleach, but on the regel, so regular person onen does send karbonos. So that's the equation or the equivalence between a Kohen Gadol during the whole year and a regular person on the regel. The Kohen Gadol onen makriv kol hashana. Kohen Gadol the whole year brings a carbon, like we said. Alma kol hashana l'didei keregel dami. You see, the whole year for Kohen Gadol is the equivalent of the times of a regel for another person. Bakatani denoig bo tzaras, and just like the Kohen Gadol has to conduct himself in the rules of tzaras, tifshot techol mitzora noig tzarato bregel. We should say that the same is true by any mitzora. And again, the Gemara says, indeed, this is a proof. And the Gemara continues, Avel aser b'tisporis. And Avel is aser to get a haircut. Because what does the Torah say to the children of Aaron? Roshechem al tifru. Talks about the fact that you shouldn't grow out your hair. So meaning only them. Mechlal de kuli al maser. You shouldn't grow out your hair. You should get haircuts. But other people, when they're in Avelos, they are not allowed to get haircuts. Rashi over here says, Al tifru gidol sar, v'haikro gavimisas nadav yaviyu ksiv. It's the same set of psukim. It's talking about the death of Nadav and Aviyu. And the Torah says this is an exception. In this particular case, that's Livnei Aaron, to the children of Aaron. In this particular case, Al tifro, don't grow out your hair. You should get a haircut. From the fact that it's an exception here, that you're allowed to get a haircut, sounds like everyone else cannot get a haircut. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tezvav Amud Aleph.